if you have a tough transition period, that is the time to communicate more. My encouragement to any investor, anybody looking to invest, is make sure you're linked with individuals who share the same vision. We need to spend more so that we can save more. Make sure you have that nest and that you're capable of spending so that you can reduce your expenses.
Welcome everyone to another edition of Ask the Multifamily Experts. But today is a different edition. It's not like the typical questions or I'll be asking questions, although I will, but it's more of walking you through the process of our 120 unit A-class property. It was built in 2009 in a state called Pennsylvania. I know some of you are not familiar with RES Multifamily in Pennsylvania, but today will be an opportunity for you to learn that there are some opportunities in those kind of states and how you can start building up your partners. I have with me someone from I360. She's a managing partner for one of the best property management company in the state of Pennsylvania. So they manage properties not just in Pennsylvania, in Maryland and other neighboring states around Pennsylvania. And they've proven time and time again that they're very outstanding with what they do. So for those of you that are in the state of Pennsylvania, New York or Maryland, you can reach out to her after the event. She's going to give us information on how we can reach her and how you can continue your multifamily journey. So before we start up today, I would like our guest, Emily, to just give us a brief introduction about herself before we dive into today's event. So Emily, I know this is the second time you're coming, so reintroduce yourself to the audience.
Well, thank you so much for having me back again. This is exciting to be able to kind of process through the journey. I know we were kind of in the heat of it when I first stepped on, but I have been in property management for 15 years, and it's one of those things that I kind of fell in love with and stuck with. It is not for the faint of heart, though. It has its stresses. There's a lot of navigating changes within the market, but I stumbled into it 15 years ago, and it has my heart and my passion. Connected with Bibi and her team about 11 months ago, and we started the journey with Maverick Apartments, and so it has been very rewarding. We'll touch base on our challenges that we worked through and how we decided to pivot to make the best out of a situation. And I would actually say that we have advanced ourselves to the betterment.
Thank you so much, Emily. You guys are going to have a lot of day because we're going to tell you what happens behind the scene. It's not everything that you see that is all roses. So we're going to tell you all the challenges we had and also the successes that we've made. But before I hand it over to Emily, you're not with us in the acquisition stage. So I'm going to tell the audience some of the challenges that you might experience when you're acquiring a property. These are things people will not let you know. They just tell you multifamily is very, very easy. Just jump on board, just come on and all that. Nobody tells you how you have to go through some hurdles to get there. First of all, we've already created a relationship in the Shippensburg, Greencastle area in Pennsylvania over 3 to 4 years ago. So when this opportunity came, because we have some properties there already, and we know that market, and we understood very well that any more opportunity that we get will lead us to a greater height. So we're always looking for bigger opportunities in that market. So we got the opportunity from one of our brokers, and he brought it to us, and we were like, this property is unstable. It was actually 68% at that time. And we're like, it's pretty unstable, but it's a very pretty good property, almost brand new, everything fine. And we also found out that it was just foreclosed. That means a new buyer bought it. And the new buyer that bought it was selling. So there were lots of confusion. Why was it selling? This property was once foreclosed, and now somebody else is buying it. There must be something that somebody is not telling us. So what we decided to do was to get into the mood, and we traveled down. We went to do our investigation. So we became the FBI of the acquisition. So I went with 3 of my team members, and we went to the county. One of the best ways you can get information from a property is through the city and through random comparables. They can tell you things that are going on or things that will happen in that area. So we went to the county, we got all the information that we needed, and we also asked about the growth. So they gave us the growth expectation for the next 5 years, and that was very comforting. We went back that to CoStar. So this is one of the reasons why I normally tell people, don't just rely only on CoStar or Crexy. Don't rely only on their information, because sometimes those are not real life. They are not up-to-date information. You might need to go the extra mile to get more proof. And it has happened to me over and over again in all our acquisition, that the information I get from these platforms are not sometimes up to date. So based on that information, we had some major challenges. One, some people don't invest in cities that are not North Carolina, they are not Texas, or they are not Arizona. Some people don't want to hear any other state. So bringing Pennsylvania to them was an uphill battle for us. And not to even talk about that, we were in a tertiary or secondary market. So it was not even in the Philadelphia market. It was a secondary or tertiary market that we were in. So the challenges we faced, I'm going to list them out now, was how to make people know about PA. First of all, we had to break it down. We had the challenges of convincing people to invest in that state. And secondly, PA, some people think is a blue state. So because it's that, for some reasons, some people don't want to invest in states like that. But truth be told, every opportunities we have in the rest states, we have them in PA. I'm experiencing them on a real basis. So you have to just do your due diligence to find out. And the third battle we're facing was the lender. We went under contract and we're supposed to close within 90 days. So that means we had only 2 weeks. On the second and a half month, the lender pulled off. And that was a very, very difficult situation, because one of the situations we were in was we had already invested $550,000 that was non-refundable to the seller. So if the lender was not going to move forward, how were we going to fund the deal? One, and two, we're going to lose $550,000 if we decided to back out, or if no lender was going to do it. So because it's one, in that market, it was difficult for us to get a Fannie or a Freddie to fund that deal for us. So that was a very challenging aspect. So the seller took advantage of it and said, okay, guys, I'm going to give you 1 month, 2 weeks extra. That is an additional 2 weeks to the remaining 2 weeks. If you guys don't close, I will keep increasing my purchase price. So the purchase price was going to move every week by 50,000. The property was for 13.3 million. So every week, 50,000. We're not going to allow that happen. So we reached out to one of our partners, F&M Bank, and we told them the situation, and they were like, we'll try, let's see if there's any issues. We might not do it, because we told them why the other lender pulled out. There was some kind of issues in the market. So they were not lending to anybody. They took that drastic decision not to lend. So it was not just for us, it was for every other business that wanted to come on board, but it affected us. So the new bank investigated that and found out that there was nothing wrong with the property. Everything was good. The market was good. And they said we should give them a few days. They were going to give us a yes or a no. And within that, between the yes and a no, you should remember that we had a target with the seller. We were either going to lose our money or keep paying an additional money on the purchase price. We were praying, I would not lie to you, we went on our knees, everybody. We were actually praying that the new bank would approve the loan, and everything worked out. The new bank called on the day they said we were going to call, that everything was perfect, we were going to approve the loan. So that was how we were able to do that. And we also had challenges from partners. Some of our partners came up and said they could raise the entire money, but they wanted every other partner out of the deal. So it had to take a firm decision from me to say, no, that will not happen. And that was at the expense of losing a partner that could bring the entire money versus my other partners. One of the things you want to also preserve is your integrity. And that went a long way for me, because when it was time for my remaining partners to come in to support, all of them came in. Because we're not able to get investors, we were supposed to raise 5 million plus, but we raised 2.8. So 48 hours to closing, we're still short of 2.2, because that was supposed to take us to the finish line, but the remaining one was going to be used as reserves and all that. So we came in as a team. That's why you need to have team members that have your back. We came in as a team and everybody started calling their family and friends. That was how the previous team member wanted me to trash out, came to our rescue. Before we knew it, a team member brought 1 million, another team member brought 500. That was how we were able to bridge the gap. And in 24 hours after that time, we raised the entire money and we closed. And the seller did not believe it. He said it's not possible, So that was the battle we had at the acquisition part. And this is not unique to us. It happens to deals now. Now we are seeing investors on the sideline and not wanting to invest because of the market and because of so many reasons. And we're finding it difficult to close deals, to raise money and all that. So this is not unique, but it's a very, very critical and very, very stressful period in any deal that one is not looking forward to going through. So we had that case on Maverick. I'm going to hand over to Emily. Shortly before I hand over, we decided to continue this deal with a property management from the seller. We took that decision because they understood the property and we felt, okay, we interviewed them. They performed well based on our interview. But when it was time to do the job, we found out there was a lot of lapses. One thing you also don't want to do is get the wrong property manager to manage your property. Within the 2 months that they were with us, so many things went bad. And thanks to I360, we brought them on board and we made our business plan clear on day one. You want to also make your business plan clear to your property manager. You have to sell it. The business plan is not for you alone. It's for you to communicate it to your property manager and they will also communicate it to their team on ground, and everybody is in synergy and working on the same page. So that was what we did as a team to communicate our plan. And the plan was we're going to reposition this property from a student. It was 100% student. That was the idea of the property, but we said no because we studied the market and we found out the market was becoming more residential than school. So we did that and we decided to transition. And I'm going to hand over to Emily to continue the conversation. So Emily, how was it when you came on board and you saw everything that happened? When you came in, we're pretty unstable. So walk us through.
We were not handed a bouquet of roses, but we knew that going into it. You met with myself personally quite extensively leading up to us taking over on November 1st. And like you said, you cannot undervalue making sure that there's synergy between the board and the management company and then the boots on ground. We knew in advance that we had room for opportunity. We were aware of your goal and strategic plan to convert portfolio to a 50-50 split between residential and student with a 3-year plan. We also knew that we were coming in behind where most of our competitors were. Most of the leases for students were already under signing and offered back a month prior to us taking over. And so we stepped in knowing that we had a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. On top of that, it was a new property, and there's a lot of things that you can do research on, but there's a lot of details that you're not aware of when you take over property management. How is the community necessarily perceived? What is the synergy between the staff that's currently on campus and the residential and student population? So all these different factors you're trying to understand very quickly so that you can deploy strategy and accomplish your goals. We started the first 2 months kind of feeling this out, and we submitted lease renewals to our students, and we had very few early takers, which was a huge red flag because we were at an all-time low for pre-leasing. When a lot of portfolios were already at 70 and 80%, we found ourselves at 20% come January, and we knew something was off. And was it the community reputation that we were working hard to recover from? Was it the staff? And we found out that the individuals that we acquired from the prior management company were a main contributor. And we sat down and we said, what do we have to do? And we made a very hard decision. We made a couple hard decisions. We decided to make an immediate change, and we let staff members go. We let the maintenance manager go and the community manager go. And it was a great decision. It was a hard, high risk decision, but for the benefit of the community, we had to do that. The second thing is with BB on board and the board on board, we decided to take control of the risk. We knew that we could not get student buy-in fast enough. Most of them had already leased at other communities. So we had to decide, do we have open spaces with the hope that they fill with students, or do we accelerate the strategic plan? High risk, but high gains. And we went ahead and took that 3-year strategic plan and said, we will, instead of converting 2 buildings to residents, we will convert 5 within 10 months. And if the board if the board had their fill of stress, they were getting ready to dive right back into it because, as we talked in the first session, when you convert from student to residential, you have a conversion period where it's kind of a dead zone. Students will pre-lease 8 and 10 months in advance, but residents will only pre-lease roughly 30 to 60 days prior to being able to take occupancy, which means as we were transitioning these buildings and student leases were ending in June and July and August, we had to convert these units and pre-lease really 5 buildings in 60 days or less. But that also goes into strategic planning. BB did her research. She knew that there was a market for residential. We evaluated the demand and we found that there were many residents who wanted that type of property. And we priced the property strategically low enough that it was of high interest, high demand, high traffic, but it still meant the financial objectives of the community. BB, I don't know if you want to add anything into that. Certainly there was a roller coaster.
Yes, before you guys took over, what we did was we went to the city to find out what exactly was happening in that town. And they said companies are coming in. And if you notice, before a company can come into an area, that means there's growth. They've done a thorough market survey of that area. And we noticed big companies like Amazon. We had a Volkswagen electric company, very big companies coming in. And we were like, these people will not be here if there's no market for people. So if they're coming in, that means we're going to have families working in those places. And the city people confirmed it that yes, there's a growth. And we also checked the demography of what was the demography in that area. We noticed demography before now, 5 years ago, and from the time we bought it was about 33 years. That means the average person that stayed in that area were more likely students or people that just graduated or starting out life. But we now did another survey of what is it currently. We found out that they were now 43 years. That means we had working class people coming into that neighborhood and the demography had changed. So that's one thing you want to do as an investor. You want to constantly monitor the market to be sure of what is going on per year or per period. You don't want to just sit down and relax. Emily, imagine if we did not do our research or find out that we had more residential coming in and students were decreasing. What do you think would have been the fate of Maverick at that point?
If we did not have that research, we wouldn't have changed our strategy. We wouldn't have pushed for the residential. It would have been difficult and we absorbed a higher amount of risk at a time when our expenses were extremely high. But the payoff was there. We knew it was. We knew that there were warehouse jobs, 10 miles down the road. We knew that there was high demand and that it could happen. But having that information gave us the ability to pivot and say, you know what, we're going to lean into this risk, we're going to lean into this threat, and we're going to take control of it and make this an opportunity instead. So the numbers are still coming in, but the advancement of the strategic plan has been advanced by 2 years. We've reduced the expenses, and we're really going to start seeing that when we have unit turns again.
Can you give us an idea of the expenses we're able to reduce right now?
Oh, yeah, so those electric bills in the winter were close to 40,000 a month, and those were not being paid by students. Students had their windows open, they had the heat high, and then we were paying that bill. With our residents, they put the electric into their name. So already 50% of the electric has been reduced. So at the highest season, we're looking instead of 40,000, we've reduced it to 20,000. That's a huge savings. And the electric is lower in the summer, but it's still a high expense. I would also say unit turns. When we turn a unit over and it has to be painted, and you're thinking every year you have to do this, that's a huge expense. But with a residential lease, we've stabilized. We're looking at 3 and 5 year leases. Now we're entering into the second year of residential leases and we're actually having renewals. This is where we test and say, do we have longevity with residential over students? And what we have is 100% renewal rate at this point with our residents, which is what we suspected based on our market research and our knowledge of the industry. We anticipated a 3 to 5 year renewal with these leases. And so far, we have 100% renewal. I will say, we've been monitoring the universities, and there's lower enrollment this year at Shippensburg University. And had we not adopted this earlier strategic plan, I think we would have been in trouble either way because the university is enrolling fewer students. You got to think several years ago, the university used to only require freshmen to stay on campus. They shifted that to freshman and sophomore. They have the ability to continue shifting it as enrollment declines, which is going to put a pressure on these other investors around the Shippensburg University. Maverick, however, is stabilized.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. One thing you want to do is you don't want to also get a multifamily that is only for one particular set of market. Like I see people looking for multifamily near a military zone and they have the large portion of that market area. What if they get deployed to somewhere else? That means your multifamily will be empty. So what Emily and we did was that we realized that we cannot be dependent on the school only. And we took that initiative ahead of time. If not that we took that initiative, Maverick could have been unstable by now. It should have been maybe 40%. If not worse. Yeah.
Well, and
So
to that, we were at the end of May, our pre-lease was 35%. Now, end of April, we let almost all of the staff go. We brought on a new community manager right at the beginning of May. Her eyes were huge and wide when she saw our pre-lease was 35%. We set up a room that was designated to
the
tracking,
word.
chasing the war room. We had names on boards, vacancies, and it's a daunting thing to see that you have more vacancies than occupancy, but we trusted in the product and the services that we were providing. Vivi's correct. Maverick had all the structural bones that you want in a property and an investment. It just needed to be managed. And with the right team in place, the right boots on ground, we were able to capture student leases. We were able to bring in residential, but everything had to have that synergy. Vivi's absolutely correct. There has to be a synergy. That boots on ground team has to understand the vision and the goal. And when we started gaining traction, we could not let up. There was no room for saying we did a good job, now we can back off. We always have to anticipate.
Yes, I want to also ask you because aside the issue of being unstable, we're also doing something else to improve the property, and that was we introducing some things as other income. So can you walk us through what that experience was like, the pushback we had, how we decided to introduce
Yeah,
it?
so took over management on November 1st. On October 30th, the prior management company rolled out an initiative for paid for parking. And that's something we all got behind, but they rolled out the initiative without us 2 days before they were stepping back. And they did not provide the necessary rails to make sure that this was well thought out, that it would be well received. And there was community outcry. There was concern that the handicap parking spaces were going to now be charged for. There was concern that there would not be parking for students. So we had to put pause on that. It was an initiative that needed to go forward, but we knew that there was so much resistance and confusion that we put pause. We said we're going to revisit this in 30 days and make sure that we have the appropriate rails to guide this. But that was a financial benefit. It brings in several $1,000s each month where residents can have premium parking. They can purchase a space and then have it guaranteed. One of the comments was, as soon as you move your car, someone else is going to take that spot. And so it has been a huge revenue generating. We also partnered with our software to provide credit building services that generates a couple dollars per subscription. And we found that most of our residents are early adopters of that. We have force-placed insurance. So if a resident doesn't have their insurance, we have force-placed insurance. There is a small revenue through the software for that. Another financial initiative was a one-time utility offset for those students who are having us pay the utilities. Huge initiatives that some of them were able to be put in place immediately. A lot of them were initiatives that we put in place knowing that the dividends would be paid at the renewals, at the new lease terms. But they made a huge, huge difference financially.
Thank you so much, Emily. So one of the things we also try to do, regardless, because we're having issues with our occupancy, and when you have issues with occupancy to affect your income, we didn't stop there. We knew that was a challenge, but we're also focusing on our expenses. So what we're doing, we're driving down our expenses. We decided to shop for another insurance because our insurance was extremely high, 100,000 plus. And they said because students are high risk. So we decided to shop for another one because we knew we were going to transition. Emily and the boots on ground were able to get us a referral and we shopped. One thing you also want to do when you're shopping is do not disclose the current price that you currently are on, because they're going to use it as a leverage to give you almost the same price. So if you got your insurance for 100,000 and you tell them, oh, I'm paying 100,000, they'll come up with $98,000. So just 2,000 so that you switch. So what we did was we didn't communicate where we were. And guess what? From 100,000, we were able to drive down our insurance to $31,000 plus umbrella or general liability, 34,000. So that is a significant decrease, 66% on just insurance. So we moved our expense ratio. So expense ratio is the ratio of expenses versus your income. So we moved our expense ratio from 51%. Right now, we are somewhere around 40 to 41% expense ratio. And that was when we're still battling with our income, the occupancy. So now, Emily, now that we're at 90% or almost at 90%, what are the challenges you think we'll see going forward? Because there's no way we're going to still fold our hands and say it's over. We're still going to face some challenges. So what are the challenges you foresee that will come up with Maverick?
I do want to just go back to your point about looking at the expenses. I will say one of the things I valued about working with your board in particular was that when you saw that there were certain expenses, you analyzed them. You analyzed them with myself and the team, and you said we need to make a capital investment. We need to spend more so that we can save more. And you identified certain repairs that were necessary, and you spent a large amount of money so that you can stop the continual spending of money, which was really smart, and it spoke to your pre-planning and provision set aside for that. So I would recommend to anyone in that situation, if you're purchasing, make sure you have that nest and that you're capable of spending so that you can reduce your expenses.
Correct.
So when we hit 90%, what type of challenges do we have? When we have 90% occupancy and above, we start maxing out. More people are using the space. There's more wear and tear. We start to evaluate, is there trash overflow? Do we need additional services, additional amenities? How can we meet their needs? How can we make the property stay fresh? Anytime you go from having a max occupancy of 60%, then to 90%, and then ultimately to 100%, the property takes more of a beating, and we have to make sure that we are constantly attentive to that, not so much reactionary, but proactive. We need to make sure that we're getting into the units, evaluating them. At 90% and then 100%, you can also be selective about who you renew to. You don't have to have leases stay in place. If you identify that someone is paying on time, but they're damaging the property, you do not need to renew that contract. You can be a little bit more selective. You can be wise about how your portfolio is run. So those are some things I would say we look at. We're constantly looking at refining and polishing the services that we're offering, identifying, what is important to the residents who's currently living there, and what does that look like? Does that look like having benches installed throughout the property? Does that look like having a basketball court, vending machines? If we were all students, vending machines is of high interest, but for residential, maybe they have a different preference. So we're always looking, how do we remain competitive? How do we add value back into the units while still being profitable?
Yes. So let me add to what you said. Right now, when a property is stable, the next thing you need to start concentrating more of, not as if you shouldn't be doing that before now, is your tenant retention. So it will now be like you're trying to fill up the remaining 10% and also trying to ensure that the ones you have are not leaving. There's the challenge of ensuring that you have your tenants constantly renewing. So that's one challenge I think might happen. But because we are proactive, we are looking at, just like you mentioned, we are looking at ways to keep them. That means creating a community for them, maybe a basketball court, maybe a playground for their kids, a grill area, sit out area. Those things can attract and make them stay, because when you have those things on the ground, and don't forget, you have to do your market survey to see if that's what they're looking for. Some tenants don't care about those things. Some of them care about safety. They want to see security people on ground. So dependent. So you really have to constantly communicate with them. And that's what Emily and her team, they constantly do. Let me tell you what we did to I360 a week ago. Hey, we're having this meeting. Everything was looking good and all that. What we decided to do was to pay them a visit, a surprise visit. We didn't tell them anything. We sent someone down and we did a random check. We interviewed some of the tenants to find out if they were happy and everything was fine. The property was clean. On a Sunday, you hardly see see multifamilies clean on Sunday because Saturdays and Sundays are time people are home or cleaning up and throwing trash outside or hanging outside. But that day was on a Sunday and it was clean, and they had people were just saying good things about them, how they like the community and all that. So it just shows to us that already the tenant retention and customer service is already in place. So I want you to also address, I think this is the last or second to the last thing we're going to discuss. How were we able to have the synergy together going forward? Because we all knew that we're going to be in the dark, we're going to have issues, but we're all on the same page and we knew it was going to happen. When it happened, we're like, we know. When it became better, we're like, yes, we knew it was going to get better. So what do you think were the things that helped us navigate, you as the property management company and we as the GP or the sponsorship team to this day? What do you think were the things that helped us to work together during this period?
Constant communication, really constant
Yes.
communication. Even when we felt that there was nothing new to communicate, we communicated that we were intentional about where we were. Even when the dial didn't seem to move in a positive direction, we were stagnant. And there were weeks where we felt like we went back. I remember we were leasing and we started to gain some traction, and then a small private school closed their doors and we lost 10 student leases. We had just started to gain traction, and all of a sudden our percentage dropped. And I remember thinking, well, this is not going to be a fun phone call, but it didn't stop. We still communicated every week. And I would say if you have a tough transition period, that is the time to communicate more, to dive in and say, we understand, we recognize, and this is where we're moving. Our strategy hasn't changed. If it hasn't changed, then this is what we're going to continue doing, making sure that everyone was aware. I'll be honest, the boots on the ground, when they're on those calls, they're nervous. It is not the favorite part of their day, but it's so healthy for them to hear that it's not just the board who's off in this, la la land. They're in it as well. They have their investments. They're so closely tied to the success of Maverick or whatever investment. And for them to see that this is much bigger than boots on ground. So I would say constant communication.
Exactly. Based on what you just said, one thing you also want to do is treat your property as a business. You don't just want to come and start smiling. Yes, there are periods for you to start smiling or to start joking or having fun, but it's a business. Treat it as that. And once you start treating it very seriously, everyone will come on board and know that, yes, this is actually a serious business. And don't forget, you have so many people to answer to, or you are responsible to. You have your LP investors, you have the lender. The lenders are so very critical, and that's one thing you don't want to make unstable. One thing you also want to do is, even in this period where you're having issues or things are going on well, communication with your lender is important. And that was one thing we're doing. We're communicating our problems, we're communicating our good times, everything that we're going through, we're constantly communicating. And that kind of left the lender abreast. And they were not calling, they were not even asking us anything. They were just like cooling off and waiting for us to just communicate. And that's what we're doing. And one last thing before I ask you the last question is the KPIs. There's some things we put in place. We were not going to compromise them. We are always reviewing our KPIs weekly. One, and secondly, we had a budget that if things do not fall under that budget, we have to sit down and look for other ways we can cover up for it. So we don't just approve without seeing the implication. How will this affect our net operating income? How will this affect our expenses or our expense ratio? How will this decision affect our income? Just yesterday, the property manager sent an email to us and said they need additional trash. And this was my response to her. We will not approve it until we see the overall implication of that decision. If it's going to give us more benefits, we'll look for wiggle rooms in the budget to accommodate. But if it's going to give us somewhat benefits and we don't have the budget, we might need to shift it to another time and all that. So these are the decisions you need to start taking. You need to follow your budgets are not there for a picture. They're not just there for you to just have it. Right now, we've created our 2024 to 2025 budget. Emily, do you want to speak on that a little before we wrap up on this?
Yeah, so the budgets are crucial. Anytime that you overspend in one category, you want to be intentional about it. It's not just it happened. Let's be intentional. If you think it's going to happen, evaluate it, analyze it. Is it something that can be avoided? Is it something that should be avoided? And is it something that we're going to lean into and then create space for it in our next budget? But any money spent or overspent in one category comes from another category. So then you have to look at it critically and you say, which other expense category are we going to reduce? Or is there an opportunity for us to increase income through additional rents or other revenue generating sources? But the budget is crucial. When you're looking at conversions, which we did with Maverick between student and residential, and the finances were so tight, we did not have a margin for overspending. We had to be so on point. And BB, you are right there.
You're making me laugh. No, but those are very serious decisions we had to take, and it's paying off now. Right now, it's really, really paying off, and I'm happy about it. So, in summary, Emily, what would you like to say, or what would you like to drop with the audience and a piece of advice? What do you want them to do? Then, after that, you tell them how they can reach you. But before Emily goes to that, I would like to really, really put a spotlight on Emily and not just I360, really on Emily. Emily is a managing partner. She's not a regional, but because she saw this as personal, she had to step into the shoes of a regional. There was nothing that stopped her from staying in her office and assigning a regional manager to manage Maverick. She didn't do that. She said, this is business. I have to treat this like my own. She stepped into that and reorganize the entire portfolio and the team. So now, because she stepped in, things took a different transformation. The decision we made to bring I360, we'll take that decision over and over and over again. So I'm really, really talking to people that are in that market, PA, Maryland, New York, New Jersey. If you're looking for a good property manager, please reach out to Emily. And I can assure you that you just need to cross your hands and watch them take you for a good ride. So Emily, over to you.
Well, thank you. Those are very kind words and high praise from you. Our first meeting, you were very candid with me. You had said, when you do something good, I'll let you know. When you do something that's not good, I'll let you know.
Right.
And you have been on point with that. It's been a pleasure to work with you. My encouragement to any investor, anybody looking to invest, is make sure you're linked with individuals who share the same vision. Not all investments have that vision, so make sure you vet that and understand it. Trust who you're putting your investments with, and then that individual is going to partner with the right property management company who also mirrors that. There was a huge vetting process where we made sure that we understood the budget, the vision, the culture. There was a culture that was communicated to I360 before we even started managing. And it's really important that all of those things line up. I would encourage that. The research put into owning properties and investment properties, you cannot undermine how important that part is. The other thing is being willing to make a change. Do your planning, have that strategic plan, but when you see that you have an opportunity, grab it.
That's it. Oh, it's not all cast on stone. You can pivot when you see an opportunity. The plan is there to guide you, but if you see an opportunity, grab it with all your hands. Thank you so much, Emily. So how can people get in touch with you or I360?
Absolutely. So you can go to our website, i360rentals.com. We would be happy to have you reach out to us. You can also email us. My email is my name, and I don't know if this is, we can provide links to this as well, but it's emily.shuilt@i360rentals.com, and certainly call in. We also do a fair amount of training. Not every investor who reaches out to us starts partnering with us immediately. We're happy to educate and give pointers. I am a firm believer that if we as a community operate smarter, we all benefit. Not just if we have the management.
Thank you so much. And if you're not following us on our YouTube channel or our Facebook, I don't know what you're waiting for. I really don't know. If you want to hear more content, more things about the ABC to Z about multifamily, we have everything lined up in there. We create time and energy and effort to ensure that we're putting out the right content for people like you. So go now and click and start liking and subscribing to our channel. And if you're also looking for a good deal to invest in, reach out to us. You can reach out through blueoceancf.com. That's our website. You can even reach out to us through the Facebook group. We have a chat platform there where you can say, I'm interested in either being one of your GPs or being one of your sponsors. We have deals in line. You can reach out to us and you get fantastic deals to invest in. Thank you all for your time. Thank you so much, Emily, for taking out this time to walk us through the entire process. I promised people that because so many people doubted this deal for obvious reasons, the location and all that. There's something I forgot to mention. As long as the deal ticks all the fundamentals, because we have multifamily fundamentals, if it ticks all the fundamentals, and regardless whether it's in Texas or it's in North Carolina or anywhere that you think everybody should be going to, as long as your deal ticks those boxes that follows the fundamentals, you should go for it. What are the fundamentals? It must cash flow. You must have the right population. You must have businesses in that area. So many things. There's so many fundamentals that you need to follow. As long as it takes it, you must go for it. Thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks. Please have a wonderful day.